I'll record to the computer.
Okay. And question,
yes.
are we on our first or second glass of wine right now?
I think it varies from person to person. What about you, Emily?
This is just my first, but
it's very funny that you say that, because I really had a strong instinct to just sit here tonight and do this over glasses of wine. Welcome everyone. It is such a strange year, such a difficult time, and everything is new. And what's exciting about that is that it really opens up the floodgates of opportunities for us to do things differently, for us to improvise, for us to really make Seder and make Pesach, make Passover our own in ways that I think have been hard to do for a lot of us in the past. A lot of us, I think Passover is one of those times where people start having their bad Jew complexes, because the Seder itself is so complex and there are so many elements to it that people walk in thinking, I'll never be able to do this. I won't ever know how to do this. And this year we get to name what the this is. And each of us will have mastery over the this that we do. So for some of us, we're going to be all alone at a table, which could be a very beautiful and meaningful experience, to really be able to hold this space, this ritual space and holiday space, in a way that's private and deep and interior, but also can involve dancing around your house. Some of us will be doing this with friends or family on Zoom, as a bunch of you talked about, and that presents all of the problems that we've already seen in our time together today, like the muting and the unmuting and the background noise and the squeals of feedback and the delay, the inability to sing together. You can't sing together on Zoom. You can only mute everyone and sing and let everyone sing alone in their own homes. And that's rather lonely. But we don't yet have a kind of internet where we can have that level of simultaneity, that level of synchronicity to be able to sing together. So I think for all of us in every situation this year, the rule of the game is going to be to simplify, to do the pieces that delight you, not just the pieces you feel confident on, but the pieces that delight you. The whole the history of the Seder, the tradition, the mitzvah of having a Seder comes from a verse in Torah that says, you shall tell your children on that day, it is because of what Adonai did for me when God brought me forth out of Egypt. I mean, that's the whole thing. The whole mitzvah is a telling. And so it might mean that you tell the story using all the words in your Haggadah. It might mean creative words from your Haggadah. It might mean that you dance it or sing it or make it up in the moment. You might tell it with symbolism. You might tell it with puppets. You might gather, all of the stuffed animals in the house and act it out. And all of those solutions and the solutions that we're going to come up together tonight, all of them are good. And what's wonderful this year is that everything is kosher. That's what is making this year a marvelous opportunity. Everything is kosher. It might very well be that our afikomen hunt will start this week trying to find matzah in any grocery store. It could be that. We don't know. So I want to invite people. I have everyone on mute right now, but I want to invite you to unmute whenever you have anything to say. Really don't be shy. If I'm feeling like there's just no way we're going to get through some of the things I want to get through, then I'll ask for a change in that policy. But unmute, speak, and when you're done, if you wouldn't mind remuting, it would be great. Yeah.
Where can I find some wine in Petaluma?
So let me say something about the wine. There's wine everywhere in this county and this country, and I hear there's some in Canada too. I know for a lot of us had a thing about it's got to be kosher wine. Hello, Virginia Rose. Sorry. A lot of us had a thing about it's got to be kosher wine. But the truth is, there is no truth. You can't handle the truth. years ago already, the conservative movement, which is sort of, you know, in American Judaism, the conservative movement, those are the folks that are going to look at how to make change in a traditionally halachic way, right? Sort of the Orthodox communities, they're not so much about making change. And so, and the rest, for a lot of us on this side of the conservative movement, you know, we weren't troubled by some restrictions anyway. But I will say the conservative movement years ago determined that all wine is kosher. The prohibitions on non-kosher wine that we find in Talmud and in medieval codes all had to do with idolatry bans. That is, if you had non-Jews touching your wine, they might take some of it and pour out libations for Zeus. And that's what it was based on. And the conservative movement came to the conclusion that, you know, that's kind of old news now. There's nothing in wine, and there's nothing in the preparation of wine that is in any way unkosher. Now, I tend to look for kosher wine because I love, like, I mean, Manischewitz for me is the taste of Shabbos, and it's the taste of Pesach. But that's a flavor thing. The dry kosher wines are pretty terrible. So, and here we live in, most of us live in Sonoma County. Get yourself some delicious wine that you like and pour that at your table. That would be my recommendation. Make it a night of delight and not a night of deprivation. The other thing I would just mention as like watchwords as we begin talking about things that might happen. Yes, grape juice works great. The other thing to just keep in mind is that the Seder is also responds to a biblical injunction, which is that we should each consider ourselves as though we ourselves had been liberated from Egypt. So what does that mean? It means we tell the story, a story of the ancient past, you know, a great mythic story, but also we insert ourselves into it in our present moment. And then there's a pivot that happens after dinner at the Seder, in that part of the Seder that a lot of people didn't know even happens. And it's a pivot that looks forward into the future. And so you have this wonderful unity at the table of past, present, and future. So just an encouragement that whatever you do, make sure that who you are in this moment is present at the table. That it's not just an opportunity to talk about an old story and that's the end of it. And make sure that you figure out sort of what is it that you're going to take from this into the future with you, what you're going to take out of the ritual table and into your thinking or into your dreams. That's an important element to consider. So if there isn't, if there aren't any sort of questions or objections, l'chaim, Emily, if there aren't any objections, why don't we look over at the Haggadah. Let me first look at your faces. Has everyone been able to open a window with that Haggadah? And if you haven't, you can also use a Haggadah that you have at home. Like I have a big Pesach bin, and I found like the one from my childhood. This was like the really cool Reform Haggadah from the 1970s. Still have it. This came out of the Reconstructionist movement, the Night of Questions. This is a really wonderful Haggadah, and there might even still be a chance of getting it in quick delivery if you wanted it before Pesach. It includes like a whole dramatization of the story that you can read through with your family and people can take parts, and it's kind of fun. It's lighthearted without being trivial. So this is a great one and beautiful art in it. And then there are, you know, super minimal ones. Super minimal ones. And the one that I've prepared for you is pretty minimal. There's a lot of stuff that I don't even include because it would just make us feel like the task is too daunting. So let's open up the Haggadah, which this year I have called A Journey Toward Freedom While Sheltering in Place. We can start by, on page 3 of it, there are some instructions for gathering the chametz from your house, which if you're if you're closed in at home, there might be something very cathartic this year about actually doing this ritual, which I typically don't do. I'll clear out some shelves, I'll package some things, I'll put things in closets, and I will do some changeover to get rid of the leavened products, but I don't do this ritual of searching with a candle and a feather. And seeing your home in the dark by candlelight while holding a feather might feel almost like going somewhere else. It might be worth doing this year. I leave that to you, and that's a ritual that would be done the night before Erev Pesach. So that would be Tuesday night of next week. By the way, of course, as I'm looking at this, I'm not able to see you. So if you have things to say, do unmute and just speak. On page 4, I've given you the order of the Seder. Seder actually means order. And it is a compilation of many rituals, many blessings, and different elements of storytelling, all wound up into a big feast, into a festive meal. And it goes in this order. And there is a tradition in some families of singing through the order. This is something that I did for many years at my Seders. You sing through the whole thing, and then you come back to the beginning and you sing through to the point that you're at in the Seder. And that's how you keep track of where you are. And it becomes familiar. So the melody we used goes like this. Kadesh urchatz, karpas yachatz, magid rochetza, motzi matzah, maror korech, shulchan orech, tzafun barech, halel nirtzah. So if we were at the beginning of the Seder, I would go back to Kadesh, and we would stop and do Kiddush right there. So I've provided the list for you. Yeah.
I'm wondering if the Reconstructionist publication is going to release the music to a night of questions, because I usually get along each place in the Haggadah, and of course that song is in there, and there's many other great songs. So I guess I should send a question to them, because they said something about Passover, and find out and let everybody know.
A lot of people are releasing copyrighted Haggadot for use this year. So some searching online will turn up a bunch of things. And, all of the melodies for the Seder, not all of them, but many alternative melodies for the Seder you can find on YouTube. And so if you're going to sit down and do a little bit of planning, you could sit with your computer and find those spots and mark those links for yourself.
And for the order for this year in particular, don't we just add in orchatz between every other one?
So Emily is wondering if we need to be washing hands between every time we handle something. Yeah, I mean, I think thinking through the meaning of urchatz, and we'll get to that this year, what the washing rituals feel like this year is an important thing to actually articulate and talk about. I know that in lots of Seders that I do and I attend, a lot of times we skip the washing. We're all crowded around the table. Everyone getting up and getting to some water is a challenge. But this year is a year to actually do the washing and to talk about the washing.
And this year may be a year to create a blessing.
Yeah,
to go with it.
Okay,
Something
great.
particular to our experience.
There is a blessing that we've been putting out in the Ner Shalom Eblast each week that comes from Ritual Well. It's a blessing for washing hands during a pandemic. It's on ritualwell.org. If you went there and you just typed in hand washing, it will come up probably first. And you could incorporate that into your Seder if you would like, or do an extra hand washing right at the beginning. That is that. So that order, I don't want, there are things that I might present like singing through that order that I don't want anything to cow you. Like you are going to, again, have, you're the owner of your Seder. I'm tossing these things out there as things that I have found to be fun in the past, but they have to be things that will work for you and the people that will be at your table or on your Zoom call. So adopting a traditional practice out of the blue, this might not be the year to do it. But I'm just presenting it so you know it's there, and it's something maybe for a future year. So on the next page, page 5, I just give you a little checklist of things for your Seder table to make sure to have in a good year. In a year like this, it's a year for really, again, working creatively and imaginally. You might not have all of these things. You might not have any of these things. You might create, you might draw pictures and cut them out. You might just imagine them. And we'll do a couple of examples of what it might be to make a blessing over something that you're imagining rather than something that you're actually physically doing. It might be hard to find matzah. There's some, it's very quick to make matzah. I've never done it, but but YouTube tells me it's very easy. And again, you can go to YouTube and type in, make your own matzah, and you'll get a how-to. It's 3 ingredients, bang bang in the oven. Within 18 minutes, you've got matzah. In a half an hour, you've got matzah for your Seder.
So I was thinking of trying to do it tomorrow or on Friday, and if I'm successful, because the reason for the 18 minutes is that it doesn't leaven. So that's why it's 18-minute matzah, because I read up on it. If it works, maybe I can, figure out a way to do a quick matzah class, but hopefully it does work.
Or you can make a little video, Joanne, and post it, and we'll link to it.
I never did a video with my computer. I don't know if it'll work that well. The optics without somebody actually, holding a camera.
Yeah, it will look as good as you look on the Zoom screen right now. It's a stationary computer. Okay.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm thinking about it.
Do people have any just foundational questions about any of these foods? Over the years, most of these things have a role in the Seder. Some of them are symbolic, but don't actually have a role. So, for instance, the egg, it's sort of there. There's no blessing. You don't even eat it. At some point, somebody remembers to say, "What's the egg doing there?" The shank bone is related to the Passover offering that was done in the temple. The beet is the vegetarian version of the shank bone. The orange, people often tell the story that it has to do with women's equality in Judaism, that it was first introduced in response to some male rabbi saying a woman belongs on the bima like an orange belongs on the Seder plate. And that's apocryphal. It was actually at a progressive feminist Seder that there was a proposal to have some bread on the Seder plate to represent how queer people feel in Judaism. And there was discussion about it. And the conclusion was, this is how Susanna Heschel tells the story, is that it's important for queer people not to feel treif, to feel maybe unexpected, surprising, but not treif. So it was actually initially a queer symbol, and it's very interesting that it was sort of changed to a generic feminist symbol, and it was changed into, instead of something kind of an affirmative act, it was changed into a response to a man's words. Is in itself an interesting little piece of socio-history. Does anybody have anything that you'd like to say about the ritual foods on the plate? You can have like a special Seder plate, or you can use any plate in your house. Thank you for, you're welcome for the orange. Charoset, yes, the charoset is a mixture of fruit. It could be fruit and nuts. It could be fruit, nuts, and wine. Ashkenazim do a lot with apples and walnuts. the Sephardic and Mizrahi communities do beautiful things with dates and with figs and there's a recipe from Suriname that has mango in it. There are, if you look online for charoset recipes, you will find many. And if you have any trouble finding them, you can let me know and I will give you my favorites. Moving forward, page 6 is candle
Roy,
lighting. Yes.
I have a question. I love that little insert there, plus a symbolic object of your own devising.
Oh,
I think that's just such a wonderful inspiration. I'm wondering, have you done that before, and what have you included?
thank you. It was an idea that came to me last year, but I haven't actually done it. But I think this is certainly the year for it. Something that represents where you're at, something that represents the captivity we're in this moment, something that represents something you want to invite into the world. Do people in the room right now have a thought of what you might, if you were to add something to the Seder plate that's particular to you or particular to this time, what might it be?
Garlic.
Say more, Adam.
Garlic for health, just for health and well-being.
Mm.
To keep the vampires away.
Beautiful.
Laura said hand sanitizer.
I said it jokingly.
It could be a joke, but it could not be a joke. Vitamin C, I'm seeing from Sabra.
I was thinking elderberry syrup, same thing as the garlic.
Mm-hmm.
Ganesha. Just
Somebody said Ganesha or Echinacea? Echinacea, okay. I mean, you could also put a statue of Ganesha. Maybe a Kuan Yin might be better placed this year on the Seder plate. Yeah, use your creativity. Right, a mask that some, Barbara McCaffrey is saying a mask, a very creative one. Like if you have a mask, how might you decorate it into something that is about, loving, compassionate protection? Like Rebecca is holding up right now, so that it becomes not an object of fear, but an object of care. So
we're making it right now as we listen.
Terrific. Yeah, so think about what do you want to invite in this moment, and then what might symbolize it? And then look at that symbol and think, does that symbol have more than one meaning? And am I comfortable with the other meanings that might be ascribed to it? So thank you, Deb, for stopping us for that question. Stephanie?
Well, I just think the obvious thing is going to be when you get to the 10 plagues, it's just going to be a kind of a natural thing to talk about an additional one.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move, and we'll get to the plagues. We'll talk about the plagues when we get there. Page 6, I've given you candle lighting. There's not much you need to do. Oh, I did want to say this. If you're doing something by Zoom, I think Adam is proposing as a symbolic item some kind of root to symbolize grounding. That root vegetables are inherently grounding, and that even while we're on the move, we can still remain grounded. Very nice. Thank you, Adam.
A radish is a root, so just putting the horseradish on is a root.
Right. You can also assign new meanings, derive new meanings from the items that are already there. That's available to you also. Just a practical thing with Zoom. I would say that if you can, it might be that depending on what's going on in the other places you're Zooming with, spirits might be high, but I have found that it's useful to take a moment at the beginning and to invite silence. In a service or a sort of a healing circle, I would do a visualization. Tonight, I did a song that I thought everyone would know when I was wrong. But something to just shift the energy from all of the busy static of getting the technology working, getting the table set, to actually being present together in the project of telling the story. And that can just be done with simple silence. Or you could do it, you do it here, silence, and then you come out of the silence by lighting candles.
Can I ask a question, please?
Please.
Do we know the blessing that they used when they did the shank bone on the door?
Torah doesn't mention that they made a blessing. You mean the blood on the doorpost?
Yeah, I guess that they dipped it in palm fronds and didn't use the shank. I'm getting it confused. They didn't actually use the shank on the doorpost, right? They dipped palm fronds in blood, or how did it work?
I don't, as far as I recall, Torah doesn't say. So if there is discussion of the method of application, it probably comes in Talmud or Midrash, and I don't know.
Okay.
So I don't know that there was a blessing. And that said, blessings are also yours to create.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is a year that you need to launch with a different kind of blessing, where you need to add a blessing onto the candle lighting or add a blessing onto the Kiddush that is about our health or about the miracle of our gathering in these new ways, or about protection, or about the health of the world, whatever it is, word it yourself. It does not need to be in Hebrew. And there's no, again, this is the year that it's ours to take. Everything is kosher. So you find the words and you offer the blessing, and let the people around you say Amen. Or Carmel, do you want to say more about gender inclusive non-binary blessings?
Sure. So while we're all talking, I'm looking up on Ritual Well gender inclusive blessings. So both in masculine, which is the traditional gender, and then in feminine form. But I'm struggling to find non-binary. So if there's anyone who's able to help in that department, we're hoping to give a combination of traditional, inclusive, and non-binary, so that everyone has something to feel good about, and also possibly one that is more secular in nature.
So let's you and me check in about this.
Okay.
You know, it's easy to craft that in English. It's hard to craft it in Hebrew, but there are people that are doing some remarkable work inventing new grammatical structures in Hebrew, so that you can speak in gender neutral ways, and some might even have a little bit of traction. So I'm happy to help you find those.
Erwin?
Yes.
I'm not sure, but I wonder about the Aramaic, going back to some of the Aramaic too, with Neil Douglas Klotz, maybe looking at some of his prayers and what he's done.
You have to say more. I'm not certain.
Well, the Aramaic is kind of language.
So there are elements of the Seder that are in Aramaic. I don't know this person's work. Aramaic was an imperial language that came into the land of Israel with the Assyrian invasion and then the Babylonian invasion, and became the vernacular in the land of Israel. So Talmud, the second bit of Talmud, the Gemara, is mostly written in Aramaic. And because of that, a lot of the Seder has Aramaic elements in it. It won't help you on a gender front.
I see. I thought.
I don't know what I said Assyrian, and my phone thought I said, "Hey Siri."
Okay, I guess I don't know enough about it. Okay, bye.
No, I mean, I think we also have great richness in the English language. Like we can all craft the magic that we want. You know, it's nice to have some ancient language. Like it feels deep and connective to us, but not at the expense of what we want to say. So I'm moving quickly because it's already 8, and I had advertised this as being until 8:30, and I want people who have to leave at 8:30 to feel like they got a good chunk of stuff. So page 8, we have the first hand washing, and this is a hand washing because it's a hand washing so our hands are clean to start touching food. There's no blessing because the tradition is that you make a blessing for hand washing when you are about to break bread. So that will come later. You wash your hands, you wash your hands, you make a blessing for the washing of the hands, and you go right to motzi from that. But at this point in the Seder, we're not yet at motzi, and so you don't need to make the hand blessing. This is just sort of the way the tradition works. We've done things, Emily was reminding me that at my house one year, we did a thing where we passed the pitcher and bowl and towel from person to person. Everybody poured water over the next person's hands. And while the water was being poured, what did we do, Emily? What was the prompt? It was...
I believe that it was, it was one of two things, and I'm sorry that I don't remember because I make up stories, right? It was either talking about I think what it was actually talking about our ancestors and talking about where we came from and naming people that we came from either, and I don't think it was particular to like, oh, these people that I used to do Seders with. I think it was really about like going back in like genealogy, like I'm Emily and I'm, the daughter of this person and she is the daughter of this person and they came from this place. That's my memory of it. And I've done that before. I've done that since in completely other settings, and it's beautiful and it works. And I think though for this, since a lot of us are going to be, with people that we know pretty well, we can do that. Yeah, we have to fill out the census form anyway, so we kind of need to know that. But also like maybe some twist on that. And then the other thing that I remembered about the water, and this is not something that you did, but Danny Leifer used to use rose water.
Yes, right. Yeah, so did we, and I got that from Danny Leifer. I put a little bit of rose water in that water, just so that it's both a washing and also an invocation of spring. And then everyone's hands smell good. It's just really nice. Now you might be alone, but it might still be a moment when you could invoke and invite in ancestors that you want to be at the table with you, so that you're not, instead of being there alone, you're there with the people who are watching over you. And that's another way that you could use that moment. And in this Haggadah, I've put in some, various kavanot, various prompts that are there. They're just suggestions for the taking or for the leaving. Once we have washed our hands with no blessing, but maybe with some prompt, if you're moved to do that, we have the karpas blessing. That's the blessing over what in the American Ashkenazic world has become parsley and salt water. The green of spring, growth, and the salt water that represents the tears of our slavery, so that we hold. There's a lot of this in the Seder. There's a lot of holding tensions of, the sweetness and the sadness, the bitterness and the sweetness, freedom and captivity. So the karpas blessing, vegetable blessing. You could do it with parsley, but you could do it with anything that grows out of the ground. You can do it, some communities do it with a potato. You can do it with a carrot. It doesn't have to be a sprig of parsley. And it's the same blessing for any of those things. And in fact, because you have then said this blessing, this is just a recommendation when you are next entertaining a lot of people for a Seder, is make this blessing, dip whatever it is in the salt water, eat it, and then bring out salad for everybody. Bring out vegetable courses, bring out the asparagus and the potatoes, so that you don't end up with all the hangry people at the table whose tummies are grumbling. And it's perfectly permissible. This is something I learned at Rachel Adler's table. she had this immense feast of grilled vegetables that she brought as soon as we did the Karpas blessing. And it just changed how the rest of the Seder felt, because we were all well fed and happy. We were already feasting. The Karpas bit goes along with Song of Songs. Karpas brings in the theme of spring, because Pesach is also an agricultural holiday that has to do with the spring. The spring actually began on the Hebrew calendar last Wednesday, when it was Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That was the beginning of spring in the sort of rabbinic calendar. And it's also the time of love. So, the major Jewish holidays each have a text from the Hebrew Bible, a text from Tanakh that is the companion text. The companion text for Passover is Song of Songs. It's all love poetry. So this is the time in the Seder where you might recite or sing some love poetry. You might know some things from Song of Songs, like Dodi li va'ani lo. Or you might know the Shefa Gold, Ani le dodi v'dodi li. Or you might know other songs from Song of Songs, or maybe you just have a love song that you like. Song of Songs is meant to be understood not only in its sort of physical and human relational sense, but also as an allegory of the relationship between, the rabbis of the Talmud, Rabbi Akiva saw it as the relationship between the people of Israel and God, but we can see it as the love between us, all humanity, and all of creation, or between us and the earth. Wherever you want to place that love and make it feel more physical to you, you can do that. So if you want to pull out some love song from the top 10 love song, you can do that, and just think in your mind, who am I singing this to? Am I singing this to God? Am I singing it to this earth that I live in? Am I singing it to my beloved who's sitting across the table from me? You can determine that, and you can hold it however you'd like. You can also skip any of these things. Oh, Sabra can do all of chapter 2 of Song of Songs in trope. Yes, I want to hear that, and I want to hear a story that Marty Norwick has. There are a lot of things I want to hear. I'm going to bracket, and we'll have some sharing time at the end for some of these special things that each of us brings, just in the interest of moving through the Seder. After Karpas is Yachatz. So Yachatz is the first reveal of the matzah. We take the middle piece. On the table you have 3 pieces, and they're covered, the way we cover a challah on Shabbat. You take the middle piece and you break it in 2. Half of that you wrap up and put away later to hide for the afikomen. And we can figure out, if you're going to be home alone doing this, what you want to do with the afikomen. You don't have to hide it at all. It's meant to be the dessert. It's meant to be the dessert. The whole hiding bit comes later. That's later custom. But the idea is that no matter how elaborate your Seder, you need to end it with simplicity. And the matzah is the simplest bread there is, the simplest food there is in the understanding of the symbolism of the Seder. And in fact, in this moment of the Seder, you take the other piece, the other broken piece of matzah, and you hold it up and you say, in Aramaic this time, Amaros, Halach ma'anya, di achalua v'hatana ba'ara'ad mitzrayim, kol dichvin yetev yechul, kol ditzrich yetev yivsach. Or you can do this in English. This is our simple bread, our poor bread, the bread of haste. It fed us on our journey of fleeing and seeking. May all who are hungry come and eat. This is a moment for us to feel the commonality of all humanity's need for basic sustenance, that we all need food. We don't all need baked Alaska, but we all need bread, or whatever its equivalent is in our life. And so the afikomen that we've come to have a tradition of hiding, but doesn't need to be hid, is set aside to be the last thing we eat to, so that we begin humbly and we end humbly. Does that make sense? And then we move into the center, the core of the Seder, which is the telling of the story. And the Seder has us tell it in a bunch of different ways. And this is a chance to be creative. There are lots of ways you could go about it. I would usually start with maybe a song. There's Avadim Hayinu that I sang at the beginning of this session, or you could sing Go Down Moses, which you might be more likely to know. The Seder the Magid section begins by posing 4 questions. So and you see those on page 12. And the idea is that if we answer these 4 questions, which are questions about the symbolism that's going on at the Seder table, that we will have done a bunch of our telling. So it's what you see in the traditional Haggadah is an accretion of different traditions of how to tell the story. So this one is very open, right? You have 4 questions. The first one is, why are we eating matzah? We're eating matzah because we raced out of Egypt. We didn't have time to make sourdough. Why are we eating bitter vegetables? Because slavery is a terrible thing, and we need to feel the discomfort of it. Why are we dipping things? And this is what I was saying before about the tension. We dip the vegetable in the salt water, and we dip the bitter herb in the charoset. That in our lives, in our journeys from narrow places to freedom, which we're always doing. We're always in a narrow place, and we are always in freedom, and we are always journeying. We're holding these polarities, which are not necessarily polarities at all, but we're holding complexity. Let's say that. We're holding complexity. In every moment, there's a part of us that, especially in this moment, we might be noticing it more, that we're feeling grief at the same time that we're feeling hope. We're feeling anxiety at the same time that we're feeling joy. And the Seder is an invitation. This dipping at the Seder table is an invitation to notice the complexities we hold as human beings in these bodies in this world. And the last question is about, why are we reclining? Because traditionally at a Seder, you recline, which I actually find really hard to do because I'm always excited, leaning forward. But that is a question that's about privilege. If I were to recast it now, it's a question about what is our privilege right now, right? Our privilege is that we get to lean back. You know, we get to lean back with a nice meal in front of us, and without having to serve somebody else for free or for underpaid, for slave wages. So, you know, you could recast that question as as a privilege question, and that there might be a follow-up to that for your Seder table, depending on who's at your Seder table. There might be a follow-up question of, once we identify our privilege, how do we hold it? How do we use it? And how do we hold it humbly? If you have, there's a tradition that the youngest person at the table who can chant this, chants it. This year, there are going to be a lot of people in their 70s and 80s chanting it because they're going to be the youngest people at the table. And you know, there's a sad part of that, and there's also something kind of delightful about that. When was the last time you got to be the one chanting the blessings? So even the improvisations we're going to have to do, the accommodations we're going to have to make this year, to the extent that you notice delight arising out of them, feel free to own that delight. Like, we don't have to be sad about everything we're doing differently because there's a pandemic. There might be things we're doing differently that we wouldn't have thought to do but for the pandemic, but those things bring us joy or bring us new vision. And I would posit it's really okay to name that when you see it. the next bit that you'll find in your traditional Haggadah that I just omit at this point is the 4 children. I don't know how many of you remember this bit about having, the wise son, the wicked son, the simple son, and the one that doesn't know how to ask. And it's a very strange bit that a little parable about 4 children that ask the question of what we're doing at Seder, and they ask it with different attitudes. There's definitely one of them that sounds a lot like my teenagers. And it's a disturbing little bit of Seder that is very punitive towards people that have a bad attitude about the Seder, when it's perfectly legitimate to have a bad attitude about so much of what we've inherited and how it's been held and how we felt excluded. So I tend not to do it, or at least not to do it as written. There is the underlying idea behind it is that everyone is different, and the story needs to be told in a way that speaks to the audience. So like the studious kid that's curious about all the details that's somebody that you might want to go down all sorts of rabbit holes with, whereas somebody who's feeling resistant, you might need a different kind of conversation. I've sometimes done sort of creative things at my Seder table where I know who's coming, I know what line of work they are, I know things about them, and I create 4 different requests. So, and these 4 people are each given an envelope. So one of them, who's a grant writer, gets a piece of paper in an envelope that says, you're trying to fund the Exodus from Egypt. Give your elevator pitch to the funder. You have 2.5 minutes. Go. And let them do it. There was somebody else, you're a public health. So Rebecca, I did this once with Sherry. She had to give sort of a public health view of the plagues of Egypt or whatever. Like you can find, that has different meaning this year, but you could find who are the people at your Seder and who's got some special knowledge or skill. And there's fun in letting them maybe tell the story in a way that that they would with their special skills or special knowledge. I think I give some examples here on the top of page 13. You could ask people without special skills. You could say, who wants to do it the way a sportscaster would? Or who wants to tell it with by finding what's a close parallel you can find in our world right now. These don't have to make you laugh. These can be prompts that help us awaken to what's going on in the world in general. The last prompt that I put there on the top of page 13 is lessons of the heart. And let me just say what I mean by that is that you can read this story of the Exodus from Egypt as a thing that happened at some unknown time of the past, the mythic past. You can read it through a lens of, here are people who are enslaved now. Here are the struggles for liberation in the world now that we need to be part of. But you can also read it as soul lessons, like what is the part of me that is captive? What is the part of me that still is enslaved to beliefs that I need to let go of? What is the part of me that feels like I am in a narrow place and being squeezed? What is the part of me that I need to liberate? And depending on who's at your table, that might be something that a question you can ask and let people sit with it for a minute in silence, and then share what came to them. If you have a group that's intimate enough and open enough to doing this, profound things can arise. And you could just read the story. So I've included a telling that we've done at Ner Shalom. And you can go around the table, everybody reading a sentence. And that's easy, and it's there for you, and you don't have to be thinking of creative a creative idea at every turn. You can use this, it's here for you. And other Haggadot have similar tellings that you can go around the table and use. Part of the telling are the 10 plagues. Ari, do you want to speak to what you just put into the chat?
Yes,
Are you
so
back?
I have, I'll hold it up. I don't know how the lighting's going to work here, but so it's the 30-minute Seder. And it really is super kid friendly, of course, you know, showing like they're the 10 plagues. But it talks about with the 4 children that, you know, the wise or studious likes to study and analyze, that the wicked is more rebellious and really doesn't want to get involved. But the simple one is talking more about like being overwhelmed, being somebody who just doesn't get the whole thing, and they don't need the details. They just need the story. But I loved the child too young to ask. The whole paragraph is maybe they're too young to form a question or unable to ask one because they simply don't understand. Perhaps this child of God may be an adult that lacks the capacity to speak or lives with some other disability. Treat them with love, understanding, and patience, and explain the meaning of Passover in terms that they can relate to. Try telling stories or singing songs and make it a festive time.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, you know, I'm moving through this at breakneck speed. And the truth is there is no like minimum required way of doing this.
Can I?
The telling can be very simple. And we all benefit from hearing the story in its simplest ways. And too much driving the bus also keeps people from having their own experience. Alexandra?
An 80-page The Velveteen Rabbits. This is from Boise, from friends in Boise. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
It's 80 pages.
Wait, is that Velveteen Rabbit or Rabbi? It's Velveteen Rabbi.
Rabbi.
That's Rachel Barenblatt.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. We use this in Boise.
Beautiful. Yeah, Rachel is wonderful writer and thinker, and she's also the editor of Ner Shalom's poetry anthology, which will be coming out soon.
Oh, did not know. Oh, yes, I did. Okay. Just remembered, among other.
So I'm interested in Stephanie raised the question before about what are we going to do about the plagues. I don't know if Stephanie's still on the call, but the question is, what are we going to do when we get to the plagues this year? I think at the very least, I would, if we did them the normal way, I put in a prompt here that we're living in a very unusual time right now. Is anything about the story of the plagues feeling different to you this year? If it feels juicy, talk about it. And then only when you're ready, continue with the story, just to allow for whatever arises, because I'm not certain I know how to predict what's going to arise. I myself am a little resistant. I tend to be resistant to the mapping of these mythic plagues onto things in the world. I think it can end up being more limiting than liberating sometimes. But this is an unprecedented time, and I'm curious if anybody has any ideas that have been going through your heads already.
Erwin, I'm interested in what you're saying about the how you think it's limiting to compare them to present day things. In the Haggadah that we have followed in my family and with a close group of friends, we go through the traditional plagues, and then we have 10 that aren't related to any of the ones, but are things that we believe are the things that in our society, our culture, our world, the things that we need to be aware of. That, you know, whether it be, you know, tyranny or racism or injustice or greed, etc., things like that we kind of go through for that awareness of that. And I'm wondering, is that something that you think doesn't work.
I don't know. That's beautiful. Is it something that you create and hand out, or is it something that people derive together at the table?
No, it's something that is pre-written that people share, that, we do the traditional with the finger in the wine and we all dip, but so we do the traditional ones first and then we do these non-traditional ones after, just to bring awareness that these other ones are historical, mythical ones that we do out of a sense of tradition and affinity to where we came from and our ancestors and what they did at a Seder table. But then these are the ones that we need to keep in our awareness and consciousness now.
Beautiful. The practice, the physical practice that goes along with the enumerating of the plagues is that you pour out or drop out with your finger wine for each of the plagues. And the kavanah, the intention behind that is that our joy can't be complete, even if we have been liberated. If we have, our joy can't be complete if people suffered for our freedom. And so doing those 10 and then offering what else, what are the other things in this moment that diminish our joy might be another way to go about it, and let people speak to what's in their hearts. What else is diminishing our joy? And then really you can take another drop of wine out of your glass as if saying amen. Somebody else started to say something.
Yeah, just one thing I was just thinking about. I don't know really. So like if I think about the plagues, the traditional plagues, they were things that were unbearable, right? And at each turn, like Pharaoh was gonna let them go, and then he's like, "Oh no, I changed my mind," right? That's sort of the story. The modern day plagues that we, and I've definitely been to a ton of Seders where we talk about, we make this list of all the injustices in our world. And I know that there are a lot of people who are working really hard to fix those and change those, but they are things that we just live with and we don't stop. And so I feel like this current plague, this pandemic, like has a feel to it. It is something that is making us stop, making us say, live with us. And I'm not, in saying this, I'm not like diminishing the other, all of our current modern day plagues, but it's just like a different thing.
Be with you. And I like when you said about leaving it open, not making these predetermined ahead of time, but putting it out to the group and asking them, having them participate, having each of us feel what comes up for us at that time of what we're feeling. And as you're saying, I'm sorry, I forget your name, who's
Emily.
just talked.
Emily.
But what you're saying, you're right. This is a different time, and it is going to be a different experience for us. And just to do something rote from before feels
Yeah, there is. Oh, it is. Yeah, it's 8:28. So people who need to drop off the call, we're a good way through. I'll keep going for another bit to get through this. And you can always look at the recording and pick it up where you left off. Yeah, I think there's value in open-endedness. I think that's what I was saying about the limitingness, is that sometimes when I feel like someone else is putting words in my mouth about how I should understand the things going on in the world. And it might not be exactly what my angle is or my experience of it is. Or even if it is, it might not be next year when I pick up this Haggadah again. But if it can be happening in the moment and from our experience in the moment, then I think it will have it'll be very alive for people. And it might be that your Seder, besides a few traditional foods or nods to the foods, might be, here's the story, and here are the plagues, and what are the things we want to add to them. I think the other thing that's difficult for me in a kind of a ritual way is that then what do we do with that? We've invoked and invited in all these terrible things that are happening. So what do we do with that? Are we transforming it in some way? Are we making commitments in some way? And that might be a group decision that can happen. Like we've just at the table. Is there something that we at the table will all agree to do? Or it could be, can we now together form a blessing, form a prayer together about these things? And the prayer can also be spoken in by all the people at the table. May we see injustice, may we act, may we, and setting intentions in the form of a blessing might be something else that can be done. So yeah, I'm cautious. So if you do invoke all these things and bring them up and let people speak to, and this, you're right, this is the moment for it, especially because there's such clear connection right now between our own Pharaoh-like hard-heartedness, as a species, and what's happening to the earth and what's happening to people's bodies right now. It's the connection has never been clearer. But I feel like once you bring all those things into the room, you need to do something with them. Even if it's just to hold them silently for a moment and then agree that we won't forget these things, even in our joy, and to move on. But not to leave them unaddressed, unspoken to, sitting on the table. Story, story, story. The story ends. You can sing Dayenu. There's more wine. Page 16 of the Haggadah we're looking at is the hand washing that has the blessing. And the blessing for hand washing is an interesting blessing because it doesn't say washing. It doesn't say God who has commanded us to wash our hands. It uses the word nitilah, limtol, which is to lift up or to wave. It's the same blessing we use for the lulav, al nitilat lulav. We're certainly not washing the lulav on Sukkot. We're waving it around. We're lifting it up and raising it around. So it's an interesting and a little bit cryptic blessing. And so it might be one that's open to new interpretation, like may we lift up our hands to, like traditionally you would wash your hands with water and then lift your hands up and make this blessing. But what might it mean to lift up our hands? To use our hands for holy purposes, to use our hands for good, to use our hands for healing. So there might be some kind of new understanding that you can bring to the hand washing blessing, and it invites it by using the strange word nitilah instead of a word that actually means washing, rinsing, scrubbing, anything like that. And here right now, where we're all washing our hands all the time, we're washing our hands not just to keep from becoming sick, we're washing our hands to keep from making other people sick. There's a different level, a different flavor of holiness that goes with that, of making our hands instruments of blessing and not instruments of curse. I'm saying these things figuring if any of you has an idea or something to toss in, that you will do it. So I'm moving on now to page 17. So now we're on the home stretch to dinner, where we've washed our hands and made a blessing. Traditionally, you wouldn't say any words between the hand washing blessing and the blessing for the bread. Emily and I back at University of Chicago, we would, do the washing, and then we would all hum. Everyone would hum a song together to keep yourself from accidentally saying words, so that you're holding still this intention that the holding your hands for holy purpose includes how we eat, that our eating is also that we may eat for holiness, that we may eat with awareness, gratitude, mindfulness. So the two blessings over the matzah are right there. The bitter herb, and then eating the bitter herb and the charoset in a sandwich on matzah, that's called korech. And then it's time for dinner. So I think I'm almost going to stop, even though there's stuff after dinner. But I want to say something about like what happens if you don't have the thing that you would normally have on your Seder plate. This is a year for a lot of improvisation. So if you don't have charoset, some applesauce, or if you don't have anything that seems to you like charoset or like, whatever you're trying to achieve with it, this might be a year for doing it imaginally, and holding in your mind the memory of what charoset tastes like, the apple flavor and the nutty texture and the fume of the sweet wine up your nose. You might be able to remember it in enough detail that you can offer blessing over it, over the memory of it. Setting the intention that next year, l'shana haba'ah, next year, we will do it with all of the bells and whistles, but we don't need the bells and whistles. So I encourage you not to feel hampered by what you don't have. You might consider, instead of having charoset on your table, write out a recipe for charoset and put it on your table. See if there's some way that you can represent it. Or maybe this year you have a different symbol altogether and you give over the charoset spot or the maror spot to one of those symbols that you came up with for what we're going through right now. And you figure out in that moment what you want to say and what is the blessing you want to offer. After dinner, there's a blessing because we shouldn't eat without expressing our gratitude. I can record some of these things for you. Actually, when we're done, I might just stay on and sing a couple of these things so that they're here on the recording. There's counting of, the Omer begins the second night. So long, Emily, good to see you. There's Elijah's cup and Miriam's cup, which are forward-looking. Reaching out to Elijah is reaching out to a better world. Elijah symbolically in rabbinic tradition represents a messianic era. And so when we name Elijah, we're speaking about a future that we want to create or that we want to receive. So that might be a moment in the Seder where instead of singing to Elijah and instead of singing to Miriam, you ask people to specifically invite in, what do you want to invite into the world? And then offer a blessing that we might start engaging those things now rather than lofting the invitation and then waiting around. Or what are the ways that we can be the conduit for those things to enter the world or to be strengthened in the world?
Erwin,
Yes?
I was just thinking of how liberating this has been tonight in terms of freeing us up to really revision what Seder is in these times and revision the world we want to see on the other side of it, and how absolutely perfect the word liberation is in terms of how we approach Pesach. There's just a sweetness.
We're together. We are escaping the captivity of the Seder. Songs at the end, looking forward, inviting things in, singing, drinking songs, which a lot of our traditional Pesach end of meal songs like Chad Gadya are. It's just because you've had 4 glasses of wine and everyone wants to see if you can sing all those words. And you can choose to, I think as long as, I would encourage you to end the Seder in a forward-looking way, inviting in a future in some way that draws from the experience of this story of liberation, that draws from everything we've named at the table, and that turns, for instance, this might be the place where if we set the additional plagues that we assemble, if we've set them aside, if we flagged them and set them aside, the end of the Seder here in this Nirtza section, for instance, holding our cups, might be the moment where we invite the healing for those things, where we say, may injustice be healed, may racism be healed, may privilege be distributed evenly among all creatures of this planet, may, whatever it is that came up, if we wrote those down, let's say, we can, at this point, turn each of those into a desire, a longing, an invitation, a blessing. So I think I'm going to stop. Everything else I could give over would be sort of the traditional, here's what people do and here's why people do it. And that stuff you can find online or you can email me. Or they might be melodies, and I'm going to stay on and sing a couple of them. You can always come back then and check out the recording, which I'll post on Ner Shalom's YouTube channel. And you can check those out, but you could equally, if not more easily, just go onto YouTube and listen to some recordings. And there's also, it might be a year that if you don't have melodies, but you've been poking around and you hear this incredible Moroccan melody for something, that at that point in the Seder, you hit play and you listen to it together.
I want to echo what Barbara said. This has been liberating. This has been inspiring for me. Thank you, Erin, very much for organizing this. It's given me a lot of different ideas. One about how to condense things and draw out the things that are most meaningful and dispense with those that are more for traditional form's sake. And I'm inspired. I'm excited to go back and reformulate this and get together with my collaborators. And it's been really wonderful. Thank you.
All of this is a complicated armature to hold the simple task of telling what it is like to be liberated from captivity. And so any way you want to go about experiencing, giving over, developing, dancing, singing, the experience of moving from captivity to liberation will fulfill the mitzvah of the Seder. Does anybody want to throw any additional ideas or thoughts into the pool?
Yeah, Erin, I do. Ellen,
please.
Maybe we should have an extended extra night Seder when we are liberated from our houses. Hopefully not past May 3rd, but maybe we should have a goodbye, a Zoom or something.
Amen. I think that's a wonderful idea. I think we could create some beautiful ritual for that.
Yeah. And then we could hug each other at Ner Shalom.
What's coming to me as you're describing the liberating the Seder itself is just, I feel excited about leading, and I feel like this is the first year, I think, because of the circumstances, where I feel compelled to actually show up as an adult at the Seder table. I think in a way, what I'm realizing now is I've been showing up as a child who somebody else was going to do it, and in a way I have felt what I felt in childhood somewhat, which was captivated by the way Seders were led in the past, which is in a very traditional, dry way. So I feel really excited in this moment given what's happening in the world, I just feel called to really show and to make Seder my own and to really reconnect to my life and I think new. And I think that feels really possible for me and in my family. Thank you for the instruction.
And think
I feel
about
inspired.
Good, I'm glad. And think about what are the liberatory practices that you have, and what are the liberatory texts that you have been reading, and might those be the texts that you bring to the table? Might it be reading some Martin Luther King and some Clarissa Pinkola Estes, or whose words are the prophetic words of this moment? Because we do not have to be stuck with Rabban Gamliel finding 8 different ways to count how many plagues there were. Okay.
Thank you.
Is that a can I talk, or is that a goodbye? That's a goodbye. Thank you all for being here. I'm gonna stay on. You're welcome to lurk. I just want to sing a couple songs into the record. And I wish you all a Zisen Pesach, a sweet Pesach. May it be meaningful and bubbly and exciting, whether you're sitting at your table having a private experience of it, whether you're with loved ones around the table, or whether you're connecting with people through the miracle of this mechanical telepathy that we call the internet. May it be a blessed time. May we embody liberation even while we are shut in our houses. May it all be for the good of the planet. And may we emerge when it is safe to emerge and when our planet can be healed.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Amen.
So this is me continuing on. I just wanted to sing these 2 different blessings for after the meal because they're really lovely. One is by Shefa Gold, Rabbi Shefa Gold, and it's the shortest. It's a very short phrase from Talmud that is considered to be like if you're being chased by robbers and you just finished eating and you don't have time, you're in danger and you don't have time to do the long after meal blessing. Here is the short version that they offer. It's in Aramaic, and Rabbi Gold has set it to music, and it goes, Bricha chamana malka de'alma mare dehai pita. Bricha chamana malka de'alma mare dehai pita. You are the source of life for all that is, and all blessings flow through you. You are the source of life for all that is, and all blessings flow through you. That's on page 20 of this particular Haggadah we've been learning with tonight. The other version of the English is, you are the source of life for all that is, and your blessings flow through me. That's the other way that people sing it. And then Rabbi Chana Tiferet Siegel wrote a very beautiful grace after the meal that is in this Haggadah on page 21. Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta. That's a quote from Torah that means you shall eat and you shall be satisfied and you shall offer blessing. And it goes, Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta. Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta. We ate when we were hungry, and now we're satisfied. We thank the source of blessing for all that she provides. Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta. Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta. Hunger is a yearning in body and soul. Earth, air, fire, water, and spirit makes us whole. Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta. Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta. Giving and receiving, we open up our hands. From seed time through harvest, we're partners with the land. V'achalta v'savata uverachta. V'achalta v'savata uverachta. We all share in a vision of wholeness and release, where every child is nourished and we all live in peace. V'achalta v'savata uverachta. V'achalta v'savata uverachta. I think I also wanted to sing into the record. Let's see, where is it? In the Hallel, which is next after that. Is it? Did I miss it? Here we go. Lo Lanu, which is on page 23, and this is a melody by Joe Singer and Bon Singer. And I'm happy to say that like one of its premieres was at my Seder table when Jose and Bon were over in prehistory, 1990s. And it goes, Lo Lanu, Shaddai Lo Lanu, Lo Lanu, Shaddai Lo Lanu. Ki l'shimcha ten kavod al chastecha al amitecha. Ki l'shimcha ten kavod al chastecha al amitecha. Lo lanu Shaddai lo lanu. Lo lanu Shaddai lo lanu. And the other items you can find, like Rabbi Shefa's Min HaMetzar, you can find that on her website. I'll sing it to you briefly. It goes, Min HaMetzar Karatia Anani Vamerchavia Vamerchavia Min HaMetzar Karatia Anani Vamerchavia Vamerchavia Min HaMetzar Karatia Anani Vamerchavia Vamerchavia Min HaMetzar Karatia Anani Vamerchavia Vamerchavia. I think that's probably all that I have like a special melody to give over. I think other things you can find on YouTube, hunt around, see what delights you, and bring in things from folk music and pop music if you'd like. Oh, you're all still here. So many of you are still here. So yeah, bring in other music that moves you, and don't be shy about bringing in things that are meaningful to you in this current moment. I'm going to stop lecturing now. Is there anything else anybody else wants to say before I end the meeting?
I do.
Oh, yes. And maybe actually when you're done saying whatever, maybe you could actually, if you felt like chanting us a little bit of Shir Shirim to go in the record too, that would be so beautiful, Sabra.
Oh, okay, sure. I meant for the Seder, but I'd be happy to. What was I gonna? Oh yeah, just that, I don't know if you saw in the chat, but there are people who are circulating petitions to try to bust out those poor refugees who are detained in these horrible prison camps, which is a COVID-19 nightmare, you know, and we're trying to use this plague as a way to bust them out, in a way to convince the authorities to let them out. And I thought that we as Jews could start a petition that was specific to the whole Passover metaphor and language, and then send it to all these Republican right-wingers who, you know, use the Bible.
Use religious language, who use religious language, right?
And yeah, and Pence and Sessions and all these people, and, you know, make it clear that they're the Pharaoh. And when we say, let my people go, and we refer to those people in those detention centers as my people, and send them a copy of it too, and they'll feel hugged, and they'll feel, you know, solidarity, and but also, you know, it's like we're owning it, that they're ours too, you know.
Gut
That we're
gesagt,
responsible for them. I've been feeling so just desperate about their situation there, and this is something that we could do here, you know, in the US, in English.
Yeah.
The technology is there to make it possible for us to do this as a group online. And I included in the chat an example of how another group did it. That other group is a very mixed bag, but their petition there, it shows us how they can, how you can use the technology to do it, and then we could do our own in a more Passover thumping language, you know.
Right. No, beautiful. And so I agree. I think that's, it's a wonderful moment, and we're all at home where we can craft language and where we can rally people, oddly. It's probably worth our checking and seeing what like Teruah is doing. I don't know if you know the organization Teruah. It's sort of the rabbinic call to justice. It's like a progressive activist rabbi group, and look them up online and see if they're creating any such thing. But yeah, let's you and I exchange some messages about that, and see who might be already doing this that we could jump in with, and if not, like what we would need to do to start a fire in this way.
Okay, cool. I'm not good at computer tech stuff, so that's why I attached that that link, because I thought that whichever one of you is good at starting a petition, in case we have to invent the wheel because nobody was driving the metaphor hard enough or sending it to the right person. If we wanted to, in addition to signing whatever else they've got going on, do our own and put Ner Shalom on the map too for the other communities, then maybe somebody who's computer savvy can look at that link and figure out how they do that. And
yeah. It's a beautiful idea, and let's talk offline about how we might be able to either leverage something someone else is doing, or be able to, like, in a meaningful way, start something. Cool. So maybe tomorrow we can check in by email.
I would like that. Thank you.
So, do you want to just give us a couple of lines of Shira Shirim, just so we can preserve the beauty of that?
Absolutely. So it's been a minute. This was my bat mitzvah. So usually I would go and pull it off the shelf, but it goes like this. Shir HaShirim asher li Shlomo, Ani chavatzelet השרון, שושנת עמקים, כשושנה בין החוכים, כן הרעייתי בין הבנות, כתפוח בצע היער, כן דודי בין הבנים, בצילו חימדתי וישבתי, ופריו מתוק לחיכי. השפעתי אתכם בנות ירושלים בצבאות, או בעלות השדה, אם תאירו ותעוררו את האהבה שתחפץ. I have to actually look at the text if I'm going to do it for real, but you know.
So yeah, so let's definitely have you do some of that next week. That's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. I was jumping around there. It wasn't consecutive, but.
So, and feel free to remind me of this when you email me about the other thing, and even in the moment if we need to, because sometimes I end up multitasking in such an extreme way, in such a moment of leading a Seder on Zoom, that I could run right past it and forget. So you'll stop me.
Okay, sure. I need to. I'll
feel empowered.
Any excuse for Song of Songs. I love Song of Songs.
And that's it. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's never enough.
Put it anywhere we can.
Okay, dear people, I'll see you some of you maybe tomorrow morning in the check-in soup. Otherwise, see you Shabbat, see you at Seder. Sending much love and many blessings.
Thank you so much, Erwin. We really appreciate all you're doing for us. This is hugely uplifting.
Sure. Glad
empowering and encouraging, and it's wonderful.
It got me all juiced up too. So
I just knew that it was going to be so worth it. You know. Thank you.
Sure. Bye-bye.